Let's take this thing on a test drive to the gas station because it only has like 2 gallons of fuel in it. Let's see if we can get it there and back. See what our brakes feel like. Better. They're still not great. Gonna have to work on those yet. Probably need to get them seated in and clean them out again. That's the process with old rebuilds. Just keep plugging away on them until they do what you want them to do. Second gear, that's good. Third gear, that's good. Steering wheel's a little off center. It's better than it was. Lucky for me, I have a gas station literally right around the corner. Well, this project is finally coming to an end. Welcome back to Lucore Automotive Services. Our code 504 truck has gone down the road. I've got the transmission pretty much dialed in where I like it. I've got firm but smooth shifts in my transmission. We have overdrive now. This thing cruises down the freeway with the engine turning around 2300 RPM. It's very comfortable to drive in. The engine noise is nice and low. It's not loud and revving real high like it used to. There's almost no noise from the fuel pump because it is mounted in the fuel cell. But my classic instruments gauges won't read my sending unit that's in my fuel tank. Now, if you recall from an earlier episode, I used a fuel tank, fuel sending unit, and 15 psi fuel pump from a mid-90s S10 Blazer because it's a rear-mounted tank. It fits between the rails of the S10 pickup just fine. It's essentially what would have come in a S10 Blazer with a throttle body fuel injection system. And I like that because at 15 psi I can use a fuel pressure regulator to drop my pressure down to 5 psi for my carb, which works great. Real happy with that. But I still need to be able to know how much fuel is in my tank. So the good guys at Classic Instruments up in the state up north have made this little guy. It's called a Fuel Link from Classic Instruments. It's a part number SN34. And this guy is pretty neat. Basically, you send it a signal from your fuel sending unit and you flip a couple dip switches on it depending on what sending unit you have. So you got to give it a ground, you got to give it a switched power, the signal from the fuel level sensor, and then you've got a line to the gauge, and that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward. It looks like it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got 8 different selections, and then it's got a manually entered resistance range. So if you know what the resistance range is for your sending unit, you can manually enter it into this thing, program it, and it will read what the sending unit is sending it, and then it will tell the Classic Instruments gauge exactly what it needs to see so that you know how much fuel is in your tank. Luckily for me, this is about the last thing I need to install on this vehicle. And then we get to put a couple tanks of fuel through it, make sure everything's doing what it needs to do. Then we get to finally release this thing back to the customer. In the last week, we put a new steering gear on it. We took the old one off because we had a good 10-2 sweep to keep it between the yellow and the white lines on the road. So I wanted to firm up our steering, so I put a new S10 Extreme steering box on it, which is like a 3 1/4 lock to lock. With that, I'm going to get this Fuel Link installed, and then I'm probably going to go drive it around because it's a gorgeous day here. So thanks for watching. Remember to click like, subscribe to the channel. leave us a comment below. If you have any questions about the things we've done, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Alright, I just finished calibrating my fuel link, which is a pretty cool little bit. It allows me to use any sending unit in the fuel tank to communicate with my classic instruments gauge set. I've put 126 miles on this car, and I'm going to put another couple tanks of fuel through it before I give it back to the customer. I just want to shake it down, make sure everything's good to go. Well, sometimes you do things that you think are a good idea, and then the world shows you that it was not a good idea. And it would have been an okay idea. In my case, I used an asphalt-based material as insulators for my aluminum tank straps. And I didn't think about the fact that if the fuel leaks out of the tank, it will kind of break down the asphalt. So that's what happened. I went over and I filled the fuel tank up as high as I could, because I thought, well, if I'm the customer, I might go fuel up my tank until it's full. I want to make sure I don't have any fuel leaks. Well, lo and behold, I had a fuel leak. I believe the O-ring on the sending unit to the tank is not sealing correctly. So it ended up dumping a bunch of fuel all over the ground, and it had this black look to it. I'm like, why is it black? And I'm like, oh no, the asphalt that I used for insulator strips got broken down, and it deteriorated and created this icky stuff all over my tank. So, no big deal. I'm going to pull it down, clean it all up, put it all back together, and make sure I don't have a fuel leak, because I don't want to hand my customer a truck with a gas tank that leaks fuel, because that would not be good. So, time to pull this tank out. Just one more thing. I guess the O-ring is too small. Oh, no, the O-ring came out. That'll do it. That'll make your fuel leak, dummy. All this mess caused because the O-ring slipped on me. And that guy's there. So we'll check our resistance on our float. Yeah, so the float's not sunk because it's a composite float. We'll check our ohms resistance to make sure it's good. And we'll put it back in there with the O-ring on correctly so it doesn't leak fuel out all over our gas tank and make a mess. I got nothing. Well, I got nothing. Did I really get a bad sending unit right off the rip? Well, that's really disappointing. Nope. My circuit board is no good. That sucks. I can't see nothing anymore up close. I bet that board's compromised right there. Yep. Board's compromised. Needs a new sending unit. Thing's brand new. I don't think I could put a piece of drop a piece of solder on that. And it's brand new, so I'll just call them and have them send me another one. Well, can't put this back together until I get a new sending unit, but that will solve our fuel gauge from not working. That'll be the last piece to that puzzle. So that's exciting. The tank, all the stuff on the tank will wipe right off with a little gasoline on a rag, so I'm not worried about that, and it'll just take a little time to clean it up. Get my new sending unit coming, put it back together, clean it up, try it again, put some more miles on it. I do have a little bit of a vibration. I think it's coming from the right rear tire. So I'm going to move the tires around and see if I feel a difference in where the vibration's at. I'll probably run that tire on the road force balancer just to check it and see how bad it is. This vehicle has sat on these tires for a long time, so it's very possible that the tires are flat spotted. It is what it is. We'll take it out and really get the tires warm on a nice long drive, and we'll see if the vibration goes away after the tire gets warm, and then it comes back when it's cold. Then it's definitely would be a flat spotted tire issue. So yeah, let's get another sending unit coming. Something else to check before I install them in the future, I guess. Whatever. Yay, I got a gas gauge! Yay! Put some support struts on that guy. Bouncing all the way down the freeway. Hey look, something else I have to do. Alright. So that's awesome. I don't have any more fuel leaks. My fuel gauge works. I need to put some support braces on these fenders to keep them from vibrating and breaking the paint as it drives down the road. So I'll do that tomorrow. Oh, and I got a vibration in the right rear tire that I think I might have to replace because I've already balanced them a couple times and they're not getting any better. So we'll deal with that. And I think those are the last little bits to wrap up this car. So that's pretty exciting. We'll keep moving. I'll put my support struts on tomorrow and work on my tire vibration. Good as new. Alright, clean that up. Cleaned up my mess. Nobody will ever know, except for me and everybody who watches the videos. That's alright. Sometimes these things happen. So I'm pretty sure I have my fuel tank leak fixed. I have the fuel sending unit fixed. I just switched out the rear tires. I'm going to take it for a test drive, see if my vibration in the back end of the vehicle changed. I think it will be better, but we'll see. And then we will figure out what else we need to do, because I'm sure there's something else I have to do on this yet. But let's see if our vibration's fixed. And then, I don't know, we'll drive it. Drive a tank of fuel through this thing. See what else we need to do. What seems to be the last piece of the puzzle is the engine, which I didn't really do anything to in this project. Has a pretty bad oil leak, and I ended up thinking it was the front cover seal to the harmonic balancer, so I pulled off the balancer, put a new seal in it. While I was in there, I'm like, man, it looks like there's a hole between the oil pan and the front cover, so I pulled the oil pan off, put a new oil pan gasket on it, put it all back together, and it's still leaking between the oil pan and the front cover. So today I'm going to remove the water pump, the front cover, and the oil pan, and put a new front cover and a new oil pan and a one-piece rubberized oil pan gasket on there, and that should resolve my oil leak. Then I can release this to the customer and they can go enjoy it. I've actually put over 350 miles on this car already, and the transmission is wonderful on the freeway. It's 73 mile an hour. I'm only turning 2,850 RPM. It's great. Real happy with the whole package. The transmission shifts wonderfully. The engine feels like it's got way more power than it did before because it's being utilized correctly through the electronic transmission. So enough talk. I'm going to get to work. I got to get the oil pan and front cover off this thing, get them sealed up so they no longer leak, and then I can finally hand the keys back to the customer. So it's a pretty exciting day. So you can actually see right in here is where, oh, no, you can't see. So you can see right here is where my oil leak is at. And it's because this front cover is not holding the seal correctly. You can see the car is completely covered with oil under here. So we're going to pull the oil pan off. I'm going to drain the oil out of the oil pan, which I just put in there yesterday. I'm actually going to put it into a clean container so that I can put it back into the engine, and I'm going to change the front cover and oil pan. So got about 30 more bolts, she'll be out of there. One nice thing about the setback plates, since we moved the engine back in the chassis, the oil pan will actually come out of the car without even lifting the engine up out of its saddles. So that's kind of nice for servicing things after the fact. I need to take that guy out. And where's my can at? We're free! Yeah, timing chain's nice and tight. Looks like timing chain was replaced. There's no evidence of any bearing material or any issues inside the engine, so I think we got a good engine to run with. Clean this guy up, put it back together with the updated oil pan and updated front cover. And we should be miles ahead of where we were. Hey, longer end bolts, longer oil pan bolts, and little pop studs to stick in to hold the gasket in place, and a new one-piece oil pan gasket. These seal better, they hold up better, and with the new oil pan it should make us a nice leak-free system that is technically reusable. The one I had on there is also reusable. I'll actually clean it up and use it on another engine, but I like putting them in clean and dry. So we'll use the new one, and I'll end up reusing the one I pulled out of here that I just put in here a couple days ago. I'll end up reusing that on another engine when I put it together. So Felpro gaskets made in the USA, and I got an oil pan that's made in Canada, our friends up north. And I don't know where the front cover was made, but I had to paint it. I painted it a couple days ago, put a new seal in it, and then I installed it with a new gasket kit. So let's get our oil pan in place. So you can see I have my new oil pan gasket in place. The little plastic tabs are supposed to help hold it in place while you put the oil pan in place. But obviously the front ones are going to have to be removed to get my oil pan back in there because there's not enough clearance from the frame rail to get it up in there. So it is worth noting that when you're changing to the updated oil pan gasket, the one-piece oil pan gasket, you want to update your oil pan as well, because the sealing surface for the rubberized gasket is different than the sealing surface for the cork gaskets. You can see these kind of trap the cork in, and these actually push the rubber out. If you were to use this pan with a cork gasket, it would just split the gasket. These might seal up on the rubber gasket. I've never tried it. Since I was having a problem with this surface sealing up to my front cover, I opted to just replace the oil pan, the front cover, and the pan gasket. That way I know I have the right combination of items, so they should seal properly when I'm all done. So as you can see, this gasket is not sealing correctly at the front. It's not even touching the oil pan correctly. So I get to take this apart again and figure out what my problem is. Now, Mladen actually has a different gasket that has what appears to be a much thicker end seal. But those are like a month out, so I'm going to pull this one-piece seal off and throw it in the trash. And then I'm going to put an old 4-piece seal on it and see if I can get that to seal up. Because if that doesn't seal up, nothing's going to seal up. So I'm going to pull this oil pan back off the car one more time. Well, that was a pain in the rumsky. I think I've got it beat now. I went back to a 4-piece oil pan gasket. This one has the fiber gaskets on it. I've got it installed snug. I will go through and retorque the bolts on Monday. The Felpro gasket with 2 different sets of front covers and oil pans did not work. The Miladin one-piece gasket was not available and won't be available for like another month. And so I was lucky I found a oil pan gasket here in the shop that will work for this car, or for this engine. It's a 1970 350 with it's a 250 horse out of a Caprice is what it actually decodes as. So actually a pretty respectable, decent little mill. But yeah, the oil pan's correct, the front cover's correct. Whether they're built right or not is another story, but anyway, it seems to be at least pressing against the seal in the proper places now, so I'm going to put oil and coolant in it, fire it up. So this brings us to a close on this Code 504 frame swap. We have done so much more than just a frame swap. We updated the fuel system. We updated the transmission. The steering and suspension is way better than it was before. We actually dug into the engine a little bit because I had some oil leaks. I determined it has a different camshaft in it. I ended up spending a whole lot of time getting the oil pan to seal up to the front cover, but that's beside the point. It was leaking real bad. We've resolved that issue. I had some power steering leaks. Those are resolved. Basically, it runs, drives, stops, all the lights work, everything functions as it should. When this thing came to me, no speedometer, no fuel level sender, those problems have been resolved. Everything functions. You can hop in it, pump the gas 3 times when it's cold. It fires right up. You can drive it all day long. I have literally put over 400 miles on this car since completing it, and just been shaking it down, figuring out little things I can fix so that this customer can hop in this car and enjoy it, because that's what it's about. So with that, it's time to move on to another project. The customers are actually on their way here to pick this thing up and take it home, and I hope they get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Everything we've done made this truck better, and I'm excited to hear their feedback as they start to enjoy their truck. Again, thanks for watching what we do. Click like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We appreciate you coming along for the ride on some of the vehicles we work on. And now it's time for me to go work on another one. You guys have a great day. Stay safe out there.